So we're in the fourth chapter of Bava Metzia. This is a famous, famous chapter, and it deals with, you could call it overcharging or fraud, and we've called it price gouging, really gouging out, because it's not exactly fraud and it's not exactly overcharging. It's sort of somewhere in between, somewhere in between. And we'll learn, by the way, before we get to the end of the chapter, that this issue about kind of it's abuse, really. It's really abuse. This abuse can relate to words just as much as it can relate to money. So we'll see that as the chapter develops. But right now we're still in money, and we've learned that the classic measure for gouging is 1/6. If you're overcharged by 1/6, then the transaction is basically null and void. You can go back, you can go back later that day and reverse the transaction. So if that's the question for price, what about coinage? Because we know that coinage deteriorated in the time of the Mishnah. I mean, just as coins got old, stuff would get rubbed, they get rubbed down. Now, we've all seen this, by the way, in archaeological evidence, that archaeology brings us old coins and they're all kind of rubbed down and unclear. Clearly, they're missing some weight. And if a coin has intrinsic value by weight, rather than just being a, if you like, value by acceptance. I mean, our paper dollar today has no intrinsic value at all. It's just a piece of paper. It's only worth something because of what people will give you for it. But in those days, coins had intrinsic value by weight. So having stuff rub off them was really, really important. And the question arises, well, okay, if we know standard overcharging is 1/6, does the same apply to coinage? If someone gives you a coin which is low weight, what do you do? Can you give it back? And of course, we know, by the way, that bad money drives out good. So there's some social cost to having bad money circulate. So maybe the threshold for materiality, the threshold for gouging, for coinage will be different from the threshold for regular commerce, because there is something in the public interest about keeping coins sound. So with that slightly extended explanation, let's jump into the Mishnah. How much can be missing from a seller? Seller's a coin. And how much can be missing from a seller and not be price gouging? What is acceptable in terms of missing weight from a seller? Rabbi Meir Rabbi Meir says 4 isar can be missing from a seller. That means 1 isar from a dinar. Okay, now with that, we need to jump into a look at Mishnah currency. And an isar is the smallest. I brought the table on the source sheet. An isar is the smallest amount of Mishnah currency. And actually, there are 24. There are 24 isar in a dinar. But there are 4 dinars in a seller. So there are 24 isar in a dinar, but there are 96 in a seller. So when Rabbi Meir says 4 isar, he's saying basically 4 in 96 or 1 in 24. So he's saying about 2.5%. Yeah, 4 in 96. No, he's about 4%. 4 isar, 1 isar. But yeah, he's saying about 4%. So he's saying once your coin has got 4% rubbed off it, it's invalid. That's Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, arba'a pundionot mi pundion la dinar. Rabbi Judah says, Rabbi Yudah says 4 pundion. That is 1 pundion per dinar. Now, a pundion is 2 isar. So Rabbi Yudah is saying not 4%, but 8%. That's the threshold. A coin can be missing weight up to 8%. It can be missing 7% of its weight, and it's still legal tender. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Shmona pundionot mishnei pundionot ladina. Rabbi Shimon says 8 pundion. 8 pundion is basically going to be 16 isar. 16 isar in a seller, 16 in 96. 16 in 96 is exactly 1/6. It's exactly 1/6. So Rabbi Shimon says, actually, we don't have a different level of materiality for coinage and for general overcharging. The critical factor is 1/6. That's 8 pundion, which is 16 isar, in a seller, which will be 96 isar in total. In other words, 1/6. And by the way, the halacha goes according to Rabbi Shimon. When we're talking about overcharging, it's always 1/6, even if it's weight of coinage, whether it's weight of coinage or not, it's 1/6. So the question then arises, okay, how long have you got to return the coins? Now, we said that when you're returning an object which was overvalued, you have to give someone time to take it to an expert or to a relative. But a coin is different. It has to go to a money changer. And you may not be able to find a money changer. Maybe in a town you can find a money changer, but not in a village. Not in a village. Finding someone who's expert enough to weigh up the weight of a silver seller, it's a non-trivial problem. And so the Mishnah continues, until when is it possible to return it? In a krach, in a decent-sized town, until he's had time to show it to a money changer. We're going to take it to a money changer. Uva kfarim, in the villages, ad arvei Shabbatot, in the villages, we're going to leave him until Erev Shabbat. We're going to leave him all week to show it to a money changer. Maybe the assumption is that before Shabbat comes in, he'll have gone to the town to do his shopping, and then he'll come back on Erev Shabbat. So he's got until Erev Shabbat. But if the buyer recognized that he's handed over a bad coin, he should accept it even after 12 months. So there is some duty to carry on taking it back even out to 12 months. But we'll see this is not absolute. Ve'ein lo alav ela taromet. So if he doesn't take it back, well, it's not a legal case. It's basically a cause for it. It's bad practice. It's bad practice, but you can't pursue it in the courts. And you can still use it for maser sheni. You can use a bad coin to redeem second tithe and then take that bad coin to Jerusalem. I guess on the assumption that people in Jerusalem will, it's Chag, people will accept coins even if they're not quite right. And the Mishnah concludes, but ein choshesh, we're not going to be anxious about it. She'eina ela nefesh ra'ah, because someone in Jerusalem doesn't take kind of slightly odd coins is basically a cheapskate. There's some kind of goodwill. There's some kind of goodwill on Chagim, and we are a little bit generous in terms of the coins that we accept.